Yo, it's the Rodney Dangerfield of expat relocation. No respect. I get no respect. Take my wife, for example. No, really, take her.
I'll tell you, my wife, she never went for me. Well, the first time I called her up, she told me, come on over, there's nobody home. I went over, there was nobody home.
I'm here with my boy, my homeboy, my role model, my life coach, my professor, the man who schooled me in everything I know. No, not really, but he's a guy who I worked with for a Cambodia service, and he's a super nice guy from America, and he's got a story about his retirement, and we're gonna talk about it today. All right, guys, so we're gonna let Lee tell us his story. What brought him to Cambodia? He ended up working with us. We helped him get set up with a really nice place out in Siem Reap, helped him with his retirement visa. We hooked him up with local people who were able to facilitate, and were able to provide him with a lot of services. And we're gonna let him tell his story a little bit. Where are you from?
I'm from the United States. Last place I lived was in Texas. So for the last several years, I've been thinking about retirement, and I've been doing a lot of reading and a lot of studying and looking at different places to live around the world. And I've always liked Asia. And so for the last 7 years or so, I've been making trips out to Southeast Asia. Made at least 12 trips to Southeast Asia and visited several countries. And so through a process of elimination and following your advice and your stories for the last 3-4 years on YouTube, I picked Cambodia. So I came out a couple months ago and made my first trip here, really liked it. And so I contacted you, and then we started working together to get me relocated. And so now I'm ready to move into my apartment.
Yeah, we actually first met in Nha Trang.
Yes, in Vietnam.
At my crazy condo there up on the north side of the town.
That's right.
It was very cool. And you know, guys, I actually had a previous channel before this, and I think you knew me since the old channel.
That's right.
So we've actually been, you know, he's been following us from when we were English teachers even.
Right, before COVID.
Yeah, before COVID until today. So he's actually one of the guys who's seen the journey from almost start to finish. So what did you do for a living in the States?
So I worked for many years for an insurance company as an engineer. And so after more than 30 years of doing that, I decided it was time to retire and enjoy the rest of life before I check out.
Okay, right on. You're gonna take it in, and you're gonna stay in Southeast Asia, you think?
Yes, I plan to stay in Southeast Asia. It's good too. Once you get out over here, you can go from one country to another very easily. It's easy to get hotels. It's easy to find places to go see. But the airfare is very easy, cheaper,
much cheaper
once you're living here. And so I think the important thing is to get residence somewhere, and then you can visit or vacation as you wish. Whereas for the last several months, I've just been moving from country to country just to check them all out. So now I have a new home.
So what led you to wanting to leave the United States?
One, it's the practical issue is being able to afford to live there if you're not going to work. So that was a major concern. The other thing too is the culture has changed. So I wanted to go to a place where I felt honestly a little more safe and not so. If I say something to somebody, they won't take offense.
Yeah, people are chill here.
People are more relaxed.
Yeah, people are chill.
Not that I go looking for offending people. I don't look to offend people. But just because I'm walking down the street, I don't upset somebody. So anyway, the culture and being able to live affordably and something different as well. Over here, you can take an adventure for a week or even for a weekend. Whereas in the United States, I've lived everywhere, I've traveled everywhere, worked everywhere, so there's really nothing new left in the United States.
I felt the same exact way. I had lived all over the US for years before I made the jump. And if you guys are at home and you're zipping around America and you're like, I just can't figure out why I don't like it, leave, trust me. Best thing I ever did, changed my life. And I'm not overstating that just for my business. I would not be anywhere near where I am today if I didn't leave the US.
Exactly. The other thing too is I find that a pro of being in Asia is that it's easier to get things done, like getting an apartment, or if I need to go do something locally, I can walk just maybe 100 yards and I can get to a pharmacy, or I can get to a restaurant. I don't have to go drive 10 minutes or 20 minutes. Here you can live without a car. Yeah, a motorbike if you want, tuk-tuks. And there's Grab, and there's, Pass apps. So you can get around without owning a vehicle if that's what you want.
Tuk-tuk culture here is fantastic. It's one of the big advantages Cambodia has over other countries. It's just safe and efficient, and it makes sense. Can you tell me a little bit about the difference in your cost of living from the last place you were in America to where you are now?
Okay, so I was living, I won't say where, but I was...
Sure, but just roughly.
Roughly, it was $2,500, $2,700 a month. But I know I can live here for $1,000 to $1,100 a month.
So everything costs you over there $2,500 a month.
Right. And I had no debt.
Yeah, right.
And so there were no loans to pay off, but just having the basics of life. This was in Texas.
And someplace in Texas. Although Texas, I've heard, has become expensive.
Yes.
It's not as cheap. People from Texas are leaving Texas to go to other states. It's like, which is something I never imagined. When I lived in America, Texas was a cheap place. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, it has been. You're right. It can be expensive now. Where I was living was very middle class.
Okay.
Yeah, it was not anything fancy.
Right, not fancy, but not bad, right? Like decent place. And you had to shell out $2,500 a month. What kind of square footage did you get for that?
Okay, so I was living in an apartment, and it was about 1,000 square feet.
Okay, it's not bad.
So
But that's a lot. Is that the rent alone, $2,500?
No. That would include all my utilities,
food, everything for the month.
Everything, clothing, etc.
Okay, so what was the baseline to rent a place like that in Texas?
Where I was at, $1,200, $1,300 a month.
Which by American standards, I think is probably not bad.
No, it's actually pretty good.
But if you were to take $1,200 or $1,300 a month and come here,
you have money left over.
you would be in the most insane luxury that you could dream of.
Yes.
For that price, even here in the capital.
Yes.
You would have the best condo with the craziest view. It'd be a fucking penthouse unit, And so this is what I try to get people to put into perspective. I'm not saying America is a bad country, because there's a lot of things that America has done that other countries just cannot do. You know what I mean? Like, but it has a lot of flaws in the culture also, and you have to kind of assess for yourself as an individual whether or not those flaws are enough for you to want to stay or to leave, right?
Right.
So I mean, it's a country that's multicultural. The democracy's fucked up, but it's still somewhat of a democracy. We do at least play lip service to things like human rights, whereas in this part of the world, that's not a thing. I mean, there's still slaves in Southeast Asia. So let's not be naive, guys. It's not like you're going to come here and everything's so much better. It's fucked in Southeast Asia, but you're a foreigner with capital. And a lot of people don't understand that, right? They're living in a place in America where they're paying $1,200 a month, total cost of living for a single guy, $2,500 a month. And you just don't understand. You could make 50% less money and have like a 300% better lifestyle.
Yes.
Would you agree?
Yes, I would agree. Because like you're saying, Jay, with American dollars, you have more options. Nothing wrong with living like a local here if you want to.
Sure.
Or you can live at a nicer place, but it's your choice. In the United States, those choices have kind of slipped away from the middle class. So now it's like a second lease on life. In your older years as a retiree, I can do more things. No stress, no more jobs, so no more stress. And it's easy to travel, or I can just stay local and I can walk next door from the building I'm going to be living in to a market. I don't have to get in the car and drive, 5-10 minutes to go to a supermarket.
No, that's great.
So everything is much more closer. So your travel time and your transportation costs can generally be almost nothing.
So have you set up Social Security to where you can receive it from overseas?
So you can, my understanding, you can receive Social Security living in any country in the world, except for if you live in Iran and North Korea. But obviously, we're not in those two countries.
Yeah.
So you can receive it, but what a lot of people do, and what I'm going to do, is just I'm getting it in my U.S. bank, and then I just transfer money to my Cambodian bank.
Yeah, that makes the most sense.
Right.
I mean, because to be honest, that's essentially how most expats who have overseas income function.
Right.
Or not necessarily their U.S. account, but whatever account they keep their main amount of their money in.
Right.
Because there are people who do keep lots of money in Vietnam and Cambodia, but, you know, there's lots of people who maybe don't. You know, they have income from Europe or North America or from retirement or Social Security or things like that.
Right.
Was it difficult to set up Social Security in the United States? Was it a painstaking process or?
Well, I'm going to answer that question, but something that Americans may not be aware of, and this is something to think about, even if you're not a retiree, especially if you're working over here. I'm just saying what the law is. There's a thing called Foreign Bank Accounting Report.
FBAR.
FBAR.
Yeah.
So if you live overseas, or not even that, if you have a foreign bank account, if you have more than $10,000 in that bank account anytime during a calendar year, you must file a report with the U.S. Treasury.
Yeah.
So to me, it's a whole lot easier to keep most of my funds in the United States, and then I just keep what I need to live on over here.
Exactly.
In my local bank in Cambodia.
And and like we said, how difficult was it setting up Social Security? If someone wants to retire, what kind of timeline do they need to get to be ready to move to Southeast Asia, like based on your experience?
Okay, I will tell you how incredibly simple it is. So several years ago, and anybody that pays into the Social Security system can set up a My Social Security Administration account online with the Social Security Administration.
Okay.
So I did that many years ago. So earlier this year, I was eligible for Social Security. I went online. I timed it. I was able to process my application for retirement benefits in 22 minutes.
Wow.
18 days later, I received a letter in the mail from the Social Security Administration saying, you have been approved, you can expect this amount of money to start on this date, and it has happened.
Wow.
The day they say that I would get that money into my U.S. bank, my checking account there, it happened, and it was exactly what they said. So 22 minutes online and waiting 18 days for the official letter to come back from the government. That's all I had to do.
Yeah, that's great. That sounds relatively painless.
Yeah, it was very simple.
So people really have no excuse. If they want to get out of the country and they're about to be at retirement age, it's not hard to set up your Social Security. You can have assistance overseas. I can facilitate for you in Southeast Asia if you're thinking about coming out here. Another thing I could tell you guys is in terms of healthcare and medical care and things like this, any kind of healthcare costs are going to be shockingly inexpensive compared to the United States. Even at the best hospitals in Bangkok or in Chiang Mai, and Thailand in general has the best healthcare in this region, and then above them, what I would say would be like Singapore. So, for normal people, you go to Thailand. For the really wealthy people, you would probably go to Singapore for major medical issues. But just day-to-day medical and healthcare costs and like things that you would just do in America that would cost you thousands of dollars to get like an X-ray or, or something very like an MRI. I mean, here it could be less than $100 for some services and maybe like $200-300 for more expensive, scans and things like this. So, for older people who do have healthcare concerns, what would you suggest? So, for a plan for coming out here for healthcare?
What my suggestion would be is once you find the country you want to live in, once you get there, then start looking for insurance. Because I think you're gonna have less pressure to find something. You're gonna be able to do more comparison shopping. But I think to your point, I think you're going to find that if you need to go to the dentist, or maybe you need an X-ray, or maybe you just want to get taken care of a minor issue, once you go to the hospitals and the doctors here overseas, you're going to see how cheap it is.
Yeah.
And then that will make you think about, okay, if I get health insurance as an expat, what do I really need?
Right.
So in other words, you may not want to spend the money for a umbrella or a policy that covers everything.
Right, because it may not be necessary.
Because you may just want to go ahead and pay the $40 or $50 for taking care of a small issue, and then you can buy coverage that would be more catastrophic. So just something to think about. Get used to the country that you're living in, and then go ahead and shop at your leisure for health insurance.
No, that's great. That's really great advice. And I think to add to your point, basically when you get health insurance in these markets, I think it's important to remember that the insurance companies here are not really specifically tailoring to expats. So the prices of the insurance will be based on what the local people could afford, and like what the middle class who would be most likely buying these type of policies would afford. Like for example, in Vietnam, we had Bao Viet. If you guys want to check them out, I would say I was happy enough. One time they reimbursed us, one time they didn't, but for the most part, they were fine. And their basic plan was $100 a year. And then they had a plan, like their Cadillac plan was like $300 a year, something like this. And you could access private hospitals. And it was quite, pretty good. The thing was you had to pay up front, and then they reimbursed you.
That would be something for, it's a good point to bring out, is that when you do get medical care here, be prepared to pay whether you have insurance or not.
Yeah,
you're going to walk into the building, you need to have cash or some kind of bank card.
Yep. Yeah. So they'll deny you. They won't even let you in the hospital. They'll let you die. They'll let you die. So you should have money that you can access quickly if you have to.
But it might be just a couple percent of what you would expect to pay in the United States.
That'd be a fraction.
Yeah.
It'd be a fraction. I mean, you can get a private hotel style room in a hospital for like $100 a day.
Sure.
I mean, $200 a day in a bigger capital city. The thing is once you get outside of certain cities in Southeast Asia, the hospitals can be kind of like, savage. So you want to stick to certain places, obviously. Like one of the bigger advantages over the years is that of Cambodia developing is that there has been improvements in things like healthcare. The first time I came to Siem Reap, one of the reasons I didn't stay in Siem Reap was there wasn't really any good hospitals. Like I was looking around and trying to find out like what the healthcare situation was. Everyone's like, you're fucking gonna die if you're not in Phnom Penh, basically, right? And then over the years, you see how the country developed and modernized, and now they do have like decent hospitals in Siem Reap, and they do have decent hospitals like more accessible all over the city even now, and the infrastructure has grown, the roads have grown, you can just see that Cambodia is improving.
Well, another thing I'd like to point out too is I've been to doctors' offices, hospitals, and dentists in Thailand and Vietnam as an example. You don't have to wait weeks or even months to get an appointment. I've walked into a dermatologist's office in Udon Thani, and I just walked in. They didn't know me from Adam.
Right.
And they're like, sure, how can we help you? I got taken care of within an hour. So the point is that you don't have to wait. Like when I was in Texas, my last annual exam, just checkup, no joke, I had to wait 3.5 months to see the doctor, to get an appointment.
Wow. And pay.
Yeah, so I made the appointment, I think it was March, for a mid-June appointment, and that was in 2022.
See, this is why I think I'm going to settle down in a European country, because if I have to pay taxes at some point, I think I should get health care for it. And that's one of the advantages I'm looking at with some of the countries in Europe is you'll have, I'm trying to figure out where I would want my tax residency to be. This is kind of like what I'm working on and what I think most Americans should be working on, figuring out what countries have treaties with the United States and where you can either pay taxes to them and get something for it, or pay less taxes, or ideally in some cases pay next to no taxes, and still do it legally. There is ways to do it. So I'm looking at Europe because I like the healthcare. I like the idea of having like a public system that I could fall back on. But I also don't want to necessarily pay like a fortune for that. So I've kind of looked at places like Montenegro and things like that where they have like a pretty good healthcare system, but it's not an expensive country to live necessarily. And they do have taxes, but it's not as tax aggressive as like going to like Belgium or something like this, you know?
Right.
You know what I mean? So like I'm learning a bit about that as well, about how to structure and how to do things like that. When you got set up coming out here, you're just going to keep your assets in the United States.
Right.
And you found that that's relatively painless. Was it easy to get a bank account here for you?
Sure, absolutely. So for Cambodia, really what they wanted to see was an apartment contract or lease agreement.
Right.
Obviously, my visa with the passport, and because everything is automated over here, mobile phone. So I got a local mobile phone. But I was very surprised when I went to get my bank account in Cambodia. I didn't have to wait 7 to 10 days to get my debit card.
No.
They have a machine in the lobby at the bank, and they just have you punch in your information, and then it spits out your brand new debit card like in 5 minutes.
Yep. Yeah, right there.
And it costs $5. Okay, I'll do that. $5.
Yeah, fine. Yeah, no problem. Thank you. Yeah. Did our partners help you do that? They help you set it up?
Absolutely. You had some partners help me through the process of getting the visa,
Good.
and getting an apartment, getting a bank account, and getting a phone.
Good.
All went very smooth. I couldn't be happier.
So everything was just set up.
Right. So before I contacted you before I came out here on my second trip, because the second trip this is the trip that I wanted to get set up and get my 12-month visa, would be the way to say it, my retirement visa.
Make it your base.
Make it my base. And so, we were talking before I came out. And as soon as I landed, they joined forces with me, so to speak, and we got it all taken care of and done. Yeah,
like, guys, I tell you that there is a value in what we do. Basically, our service is just for people who don't want to deal with it. They just want to know the people who can do things already. It's like, yes, sure, you're 18 and you want a backpack. Great. Some people just don't want any bullshit. They just want to pick up from their country, have the contacts they need. Okay, this is my guy who does licenses. This is my guy who does the visa. This is my guy who can, do apartment furnishing. I mean, we have people who can pretty much do start to finish for you, help you buy a condo, help you buy land, help you rent the place, help you rent the house, help you start a business, help you find commercial real estate, get you the proper visas, get you the proper licenses to open companies, help you find teaching jobs, teach you how the market works. And, this is why I think what we do is really helpful for somebody who just has a little bit of money, doesn't mind having convenience, and doesn't want to deal with it.
Right.
I think it's a great service for retiring people, for digital nomads, for people who are just tired of the West, but they just don't know how they would take on the monumental task of dealing with all this bullshit themselves, right? So this is where I feel like we come in. I like to think of myself as the nomad capitalist, but for people who don't make 300,000. So what does he say, 6 figures?
Right.
It's 7 figures. He's a 7-figure, he helps 7-figure entrepreneurs, better pay less taxes. I don't do that. I would like to do that, but we're not there yet. It's been a process. You got to start somewhere and you got to go somewhere. But it doesn't always mean you're going right to the 7 figures, right? But I think what we do is helpful for regular people. And I think we're affordable for regular people. So if you guys are thinking about coming to Southeast Asia, please reach out to us on the Facebook fan page. And also, it's not restricted to Southeast Asia. I have really strong connections in Mexico, Latin America. I have really strong connections in Central Asia. Not that anybody's going to fucking retire in Bishkek or in Almaty, But if you're a young person and you want to teach English, there is a market for that there. There's a market there for entrepreneurs. I have contacts in the Balkans. I'm working on more for Western Europe as we speak, and I may be headed there shortly, guys. I'm also working on contacts for getting, at some point, delving more into Africa and the Middle East, but these are kind of further along. So if there's a place you're thinking about going, doing business, you can always ask me because I may have contacts there. And if I don't, it doesn't hurt, doesn't cost you anything. So I would like to have Mr. Lee, my hero, my role model, my muse, I would like to have him sum up for you why he decided to go overseas and why it was the right choice for him and what he hopes to get out of all this, and just leave him with the inspiration. Send him off.
Okay, thank you, Jay. So I would just like to say that I wanted a change of life. I've been in America all my life and worked very hard, and I wanted something new, something with a lot less stress, somewhere where I could be safe and just live my life without all kinds of drama. So I looked overseas and did my homework and came up with an area of the world that I wanted to move to, and did some more research, did a lot of travel, did a lot of study, talked to a lot of people, and found Jay online. And over the course of years, I reached that point where I was able to make the move.
Great.
And so I've done that, and I'm very happy. So thank you, Jay. Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you. And we just glad we got to hang out. I like to maintain friendships with people I work with for years, and it's one of the reasons why we've been successful. So I have to ask, okay, because we talk about safety. Did you see anything crazy? Because I haven't been in America in like 10 years. Are people like running around shooting fentanyl into their necks? Like, what's going on in this place?
I try to stay away from that, but to answer your question, there's some crazy things going on. I mean, if you just watch the news, San Francisco, the border area.
Sure. No, but I mean, where you were, like, did you see anything like really crazy?
Personally?
Yeah.
No.
Okay, that's good.
but I make a point of staying away from trouble.
Sure.
And that's what I want over here too, is stay out of trouble.
It's very easy to stay out of trouble here, guys. Southeast Asia is Buddhist, Confucius. If you're an older person, you're treated with reverence.
Yes.
In fact, it's almost to the detriment in some ways of the societies at times, because old people can't be wrong. Now, we all know that we're all going to get old, so there's lots of stupid people, and they're also going to get old. But as they get older, they become kind of like infallible, sort of. Mm-hmm. So like you have to remember that there's reverence for the elderly, there's respect for the elderly. There's also more of an attitude of just social cohesion over individuality.
Right.
Like people are much more concerned with society being stable than they are with individual freedoms or ideas. The collective trumps the individual here big time.
Yes.
And I don't think that that's necessarily a good thing or a bad thing, but it is what it is. And for some people, it'll be a little bit difficult getting used to some of the things like saving face. And sometimes it's very hard to get somebody to tell you the truth because they don't want to lose face.
Right.
And even when it's things you really need to know that are important, they won't tell you because they're not lying and they're not scamming you necessarily. They can't risk the chance of looking like they couldn't do what you thought they were going to do.
Right.
So they keep telling you it's going to happen, but it's not, and then the foreigner reads that as I'm getting ripped off, but it's not always the case. A lot of times it's just, but again, no one's going to attack you. It's very unlikely. The worst thing that'll happen is somebody will steal your phone from a back of a motorbike.
Right.
Saigon, some shit can happen. Listen, guys, I don't want to make it sound like this is the safest place on earth. I mean, there was like a mafia shooting in front of my building the other day. There's occasionally Chinese take people, make them blood slaves. There was this Chinese guy who kidnapped another Chinese guy in Chinookville, and they were using him as a blood slave. They were drawing all his blood to sell.
Oh, wow.
But again, this is not going to happen to you as like an expat from Minnesota. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's not going to happen, right? Like, this happens amongst the locals. The guy who got shot in front of my building, this was a Vietnamese guy who got shot in Cambodia by Vietnamese people. You know what I mean? So this has nothing to do with you. It's not like in the West where some hood rat's going to come along and try to rough you up for your wallet.
Right.
Not going to happen here. Unless you get yourself involved with prostitution, drugs, or just like drinking and fighting. If you stay away from that world, it's just very easy to get on here.
Yes.
Anyway, guys, thank you for watching. I thought it was important we talk about safety and security. Once again, thank you for coming out, Mr. Lee. You are my hero, my role model.
Thank you so much.
He retired. He got the fuck out of America. I dream of it for all of you. It's all I really want for you. And it's not just for retiring people, but for those of you who have like any other streams of income. Like I always tell people, America is a country of rich, poor motherfuckers. Because what you have there is you have a country where motherfuckers have wealth, but it don't buy nothing.
Right.
It doesn't make any sense. Like you could be sitting on a house worth $500,000 in New York and you're living like you're poor.
Exactly.
$500,000 out here, you can set up like 3 or 4 different businesses and still live in comfort and security for years. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, you know, and it's a prison of their mind. That's what it is. Like the people who are, I couldn't imagine people trying to retire in the United States. I mean, unless you're very wealthy and you have a lot of your own money already, I really couldn't imagine how people would do it. I guess you'd have to get an RV and live in like a trailer somewhere maybe, but why? It's better quality of life, more for your money, culture, community, all the things the United States lacking. And if that sounds good to you, smash the like button, hit the subscribe button. A lot of you watch the videos and you don't subscribe, hit the button. I'm watching you. Make sure you hit the button. All right. Anyway, and thank you for watching. Share the videos. YouTube hates me. Share the videos. Reach us on the Facebook fan page. Check out our other videos. We've got lots and lots of content. You know, we're going to keep bringing it to you. We're going to keep trying to demystify expat relocation for the average person. Are you thinking of living, investing, buying property, buying land, working, or spending any significant time in Cambodia? Cambodia is an amazing country that offers a wide range of different opportunities for someone who has an open mind. If you're thinking about coming to Cambodia for the first time, we offer a consulting service for people who are looking to have everything done for them before they arrive. They want their housing contacts, their employment, their consultants, whatever they want to find in the country, they want it set up. That's what we do for you. We make it easy so that you don't have to worry about scams, problems, or other pitfalls that new expats face in this amazing country.